using these? Okay. Hello, hello.
Testing.
Huh? Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I mean, I don't know. Go. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So, my name is Paula Gillison Akinwole, and we are here with the wonderful Johnzelle Anderson.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So, today we're going to talk about your new book, Mixtape, the Memoir.
Mixtape, a memoir.
A memoir. Okay, a memoir. Exciting, exciting. So, just to get started, tell us just a little bit about yourself. So, for people who haven't met you yet, maybe they only read the book or they're interested in the book and they haven't read it yet, what should they know about you?
What should they know about me? Okay, so my name is Johnzelle. I define myself as a therapist and a storyteller. I am a father. I read over 100 books a year. I love music, and I love Black people.
Yes.
So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. So we are in this beautiful space. I am so excited because we are out of Petersburg and Colonial Heights, Virginia. Colonial
Yes.
Heights, right? And so we are here in DC. So this is exciting. This is a long drive for us, but I love this city. I was just thinking back to like being in at the Howard Theater in my early college days, just twerking away and having a good old time.
Yes, throwing it back.
Yeah. All right. So talking about this book, so tell me about the beginning, because writing a novel, writing a poem, writing any sort of book is a feat. But to write a memoir has a lot of connotation behind it because we're talking about, unlike an autobiography where the person is long and gone, someone is telling their story, you have picked a point in your life that my story can be told now. So tell me about the beginning in that process.
A few years, or I would say maybe 5 years ago, I would passively say, someday I'll write a book. That'll be a thing that I do before I like retire and die or something. But with reading, my favorite genre to read is memoir. So I read so many of them, and then I started reading memoirs of people who were younger, like me, and it kind of faded away this belief I had that you need to be older, you need to have lived a seasoned life in order to have something to say. But then in being a therapist for quite a while, I've been a therapist now over 10 years, and what is therapy but people sharing their stories with you? And then my approach to therapy is a approach called narrative therapy, which is where you're using stories and questioning like how we structure our stories about things we've been through to process. But then also I use an approach called bibliotherapy, which is where you use books to support the client or to maybe read a book with the client to teach something or to resonate.
Oh, interesting.
And so through those different approaches to therapy, my clients have gotten bits and pieces of my story. And apparently it's entertaining because they're like, you need to write a book.
Yes.
And so between hearing that over and over again and then seeing younger people do it, I wanted to share my story, these anecdotes and even things that people have never heard before, in a way that only I could do.
Okay.
So that's how it kind of started.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at the age of 33, right?
Mhm.
At the age of 33, your story is filled of so many different, for lack of better words, adventures and
Yes.
things that you've experienced. And so, you reading other memoirs and realizing that even at this young age, there's a story to tell, there's a life that has been lived, and it can be impactful to someone. Can you tell me like a memoir that you read that maybe was one of the catalysts for you saying, yes, I can do this myself?
It's like asking me a favorite song. What is my...
That's why I didn't say favorite, just, one of the ones around that time frame.
Uh, One that I've read probably the most would be Born a Crime by Trevor Noah.
Okay.
Mainly because even though he grew up in South Africa, he is also mixed race. So he has a white parent and a African parent. And you know, I may never meet him, but being able
Never say
to,
never. Maybe.
but memoir gives you the ability to get into someone's like intimate details of their life, and you get to sit with them, you get to spend time with them, and you can feel seen and understood. And that's why I gravitate to that genre so much, and that's why I read so much, because I want to be, I mean, people out in the world are messy. It's ghetto out here. I
Yeah.
like to escape into a book. So being able to spend time with somebody in a book is, I enjoy that. So there were a lot of things about his book that resonated with me as
Yeah.
somebody who grew up around the same time period in a different country, but some of those things were similar and some of those things were different. And I believe that my story, as anybody's story, could help someone feel loved, liked, and understood.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. As you're speaking, it's sparking other questions in my head, and I think one of them you answered. And I was going to ask, when it comes to memoirs, reading the ones of celebrities are the ones people tend to draw to immediately. So we know all these things about their lives, and we're kind of hoping to get the gritty details. But I find that reading stories of again, for lack of better words, and I'll say that often because it's the name of my blog, so it's sort of stuck in my head. Reading the stories of everyday people help us to really find those connections because, you know, I could read, you know, I don't know, she hasn't written one, but Beyonce's memoir one day. And
Her mama did.
yeah, her mom did. Yep, and you know, and I don't have the billions to quite relate to some of their experiences, but you know, yet, correction, billions
Amen.
yet. But reading stories of sort of everyday people or people we can experience, people we can connect to, you know, see. Someone could read your, you know, memoir and actually come and visit you and sort of see, have those stories with you. I think that's a really brave and beautiful thing to do, you know, because Mama Knows is sort of far enough away that people can't necessarily touch her after they read her memoir, but they can reach out to you and you might respond to their email.
They DM me on Instagram. I'm like, hey, I'm a person. Yeah.
So you mentioned Trevor Noah and Mix. So the title of the book, I already know the answer a little bit, but I'm going to let you, for people who haven't heard, tell us about the title of the book and why Mixtape.
I said there was two meanings of it, but I did an interview this morning and I realized that there might be three or more.
Okay.
So the
Evolving.
obvious is mixtape is a playlist that a person creates. And oftentimes there will be songs on there that mean something for a period of time. And it sparks nostalgia or it reinforces a feeling. And so when I decided I was going to tell my story, I wanted to do it in a way that was unique to me. So when you asked me to say something about myself, I said, well, I love music, I love Black people, you know, and so this is a Black story, this is a musical format. I wanted to make a playlist instead of a table of contents, and instead of calling the sections of the book chapters, I wanted them to be tracks. I wanted the feeling of a mixtape to be in literary form. So that's the obvious reason for the title. The secondary reason for mixtape is what I was saying, like about Trevor Noah. They called us mixed in the 80s, 90s, and sometimes I don't hear that as much now, but they were like, "Oh, you're mixed." So the word mixed in mixtape is a meaning. But then I was talking with a podcast this morning, and one of the questions they had asked, it kind of went to intersectionality. And as I was kind of defining how intersectionality shows up in a mixtape, I was like, well, there's race, there's our social relationships, there's my sexuality, there's finances, there's access, there's just general experiences that everyone goes through in different ways based on those intersections and stuff. So it almost feels like a mixture too.
Okay.
So, you know, and I never in the book wanted to break down, this is why I call it this.
Yeah.
Because to me that's boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there couldn't have been a better title for,
Yeah.
and I had that title before I even wrote a chapter. I just
Okay.
knew that that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, I love that format. It's really interesting to have the tracks instead of the chapters, to allow the music to sort of guide you, to be able to, you know, have a playlist of music in a book. It's one of the first time I've seen that, so I think that's really interesting and innovative and a great way to sort of stand apart. So I want to go back to what you mentioned about people DMing you about your book. Because ultimately, once the book is released into the world, I'm an author as well, so I know that once that work is sort of out there, it is available for all of the scrutiny as well as the interpretations or misinterpretations of what it is that you've created. And so the product sort of, and the story can sometimes take on a life of its own as people that you know come to learn intimate details about you that you've put in there. So I'm curious for you how the experience has been for people both who know you and are learning new things about you, and sort of the interactions with brand new people.
Okay. Let me start with, I guess, people who don't know me as in family or friends,
Okay.
right? So I'm a therapist, so my clients have bought the book, and many of them have devoured it.
Okay.
And they'll email me or text me, and they'll be like, okay, so I'm writing a hit list. I got Beulah, my gun, ready to go. I just need you to drop a pin.
Yes.
You know, they're mad.
We love the faithfuls.
Yes. And I was like, I love that people are going to bust a cap for me. So that's one.
Okay.
So, but it's not so much like I went on a revenge tour. It's more so I told the difficult stories, and I left it for the reader to decide what they feel. I didn't want to lead them into feeling a certain way. I just said, this is what happened. This is what I felt. I give some humor. Y'all do whatever you want with that information.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to people who know me, who have read this, there's been a mixture. I think people who know me, especially if they're written about, now fight me, I guess. But if you didn't want to be written about in a bad way, you should have behaved better.
Right.
So, for example, I am now separated. But in the book, I talk about how in my marriage, my ex physically assaulted me. And I also talked about how, you know, I'm black, she's white. When I first met her family, they were racist to me.
Wow.
And that I never felt comfortable around them, and I never bonded with them. So when the separation happened, it was actually like, almost like she tried to strong arm me and be like, you need to remove the part from the book about me hitting you, and you need to remove the parts about my family.
Wow.
And I said, no, this is my book, this is my story.
Your story, exactly.
And it was literally, I was days away from sending it to the publisher to start the process.
Too late.
And I'm not changing your name.
Right.
So everyone's gonna know. And then, so that's one example of like a person who was close to me feeling away. But I think that was in light of the change in dynamic that was happening. It's like, well, what are people gonna think? And then my grandmother, who you will see throughout the book, in the book I call her Miranda, she asked for her name to be changed. And I start the book with, the stories are true. I changed most of the names so my ops can't sue my black ass. So the only names that are kept are my own. There's other Johnzelle, which you couldn't really change that without not telling the story. And then there's Maya Jane, my daughter, and then Rachel. So those are the only real names. But my grandmother, she bought a copy of the book, and she didn't know a lot of what I went through, or she was a different person when I was going through things, and what used to be denial and downplaying, she had to face truth, and she didn't handle it well. And she didn't finish the book. She actually made a big production of like putting the book in a bag and returning it to my house, like,
Wow.
and left it like in the room of my house. Like she's like, I can't do this and all of that. And I was like, okay. And I just donated the book to one of my clients, you know. It seems like the people who are close to me who were written about, because most of my family has been cut off. You'll find that out at the end of the book, for my own freedom and healing. But the few that remained, they had their mixed feelings about it. But I don't really feel a way, like whether it's like my clients being like, or someone who knows me being like, I can't stand Cindy, I can't stand Joseph, or Joseph. I have to sometimes like be like, what did I call them?
I can't stand Mac.
Oh, Mac, yeah, he was awful. You know, so they have their own opinions, but I spoke my truth.
Yeah.
And I didn't need someone to come to a conclusion. I just gave it, and then people can come up with their own thing. And I've learned that it's not my job to try to manage how they react. In the end of the book, I give my 3 rules for interpersonal relationships. 1, speak your truth. Rule number 2, without being an asshole. And if you followed steps 1 and 2, rule number 3 is you're not responsible for how they react.
Yeah.
So I spoke my truth without being an asshole, and I'm not responsible for how they react.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You while you were speaking, you came up with a possibly 4th or 5th reason why the book is called Mixed, because all the mixed feelings that people are having.
There you go. You heard it here first.
So speaking of people reading it, we're friends. We
Yes.
going into maybe 2 years of friendship now, I think maybe. And so when I read the book, I also
Don't
had
abandon
one of
me,
those.
otherwise you'll be in the sequel.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But infamous isn't too bad. I want one or the other. So, if I can't get famous, then, I'll be the bad guy.
Yeah.
But no, when I read the book, I had one of those like slap it down, put it down moments as well. And I was eating at one of my favorite restaurants. I won't say where because y'all not going to judge me. And eating my feelings, to be quite honest, and reading the book. And I literally had one of those moments where I was just like, oh my gosh, and slapped it down and went and got myself another plate and came back to the book in preparation for what I was going to read next. And I'm saying that to say because you're so vulnerable and honest in these pages that even as your friend, I was like, the next time I see you, I don't want to just like immediately like just fall and hug you and be like, are you okay? You obviously are okay, that we're doing okay, the children are okay. But ultimately, I'm curious about what that process was of really just kind of digging in and telling these stories that are so cool that you have this visceral reaction to reading it of needing to slap the book down and be like, oh my God, what did I just read? How was that for you? For us, we're just reading it, but you're having to do that work of digging it out to write it.
Yeah. Some of the things that a reader might think was the most difficult to write were things that, for me as a writer, sometimes writing about something is the processing.
Okay.
If I have gotten myself together enough to write about it, there's a processing that happens, whether it's publishing a blog or finishing a poem or, whatever that may be, or even just telling the story, I'll say that, first of all, don't trust a therapist who hasn't been to therapy. I went through 4 therapists in the year 2023, which is when I first started writing this book. And I was like, you ain't doing it right. So let me finish this book, right? And I'll say that the most, it sounds cliche, but like the most therapeutic thing I've ever done was to do this.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just write about it. I am lowercase type A in that I want to make sure it's done right. Now, at publication, there's only 2 small errors, and you wouldn't be able to find them really unless I told you. So that's the kind of revisions I was doing. So I've read through and read through and over and over. I would lose count of how many times I've done it. And in doing that, it didn't make the intensity for me numb,
Okay.
but it was almost like uh, grief and harm doesn't go away. The body keeps the score.
Yeah.
But I sometimes use the metaphor to describe like a piece of sea glass. Like, okay, a broken bottle gets tumbled around in the ocean over time and years. It's not that jagged piece of glass anymore. It's still glass, but it's smooth like a pebble. And so there is some softening to some things, but there are parts of this that are still very visceral to me. The trigger warning, molestation. When I wrote, hello? Oh, okay. When I wrote that part, I came to full awareness of it mid writing this book. So that was the first time I told that story. Like,
Yeah.
I've
Wow.
counseled clients who have been through that for years. My grandmother didn't know
Yeah.
that happened to me. And it also identifies who was doing it. So with the book being out, there's a potential that those involved might, I'm not sending it to these people's houses, but,
Right.
they always say don't expect your people who have done you wrong to ever read your work. That's not what I did it for. I did it for me.
Right.
And for my readers who can, resonate with the stories. Another thing that was really difficult was the later in the book, the chapter "Rest in Peace, Captain Savaho," which is track 30 something, and that was visceral because I was going through that in 2023 as I'm writing this.
Wow.
Which it was so visceral because it was a situation where I was mentoring somebody who was a lot like me. He was mixed race, and it was like a younger version of myself. And then it went terribly wrong. And then went terribly wrong. It almost like I learned that you got to be careful who you give your story and your vulnerability to, because not everybody will handle it with care. And so that was a really hard thing to write. But back, can you remind me of the question just so I can make sure I'm answering it right?
Yeah. Just how did it feel to have to do that work?
Yeah, okay. To have to do that work, there were times where it flowed, and there were times where it slowed me down. Also, the grad school era, that one still gets me because when I wrote it, I felt all over the place. And then I thought with the first editor I worked with, I thought, oh, surely she's going to come in here and clean it up and chop things because it might be repetitive. She didn't barely touch it. She was like, no, that's what it is. And then I thought, okay, I've done all these revisions and stuff. I went to go record the audiobook in November in Chicago. And when we have 4 days to record the book. And so the first 2 days, I was ahead of schedule. We were rocking and rolling. When I got to that grad school part, production slowed down.
Okay.
Because that was the darkest, hardest time of my life, was being in grad school. And I fell behind in the schedule. So I was ahead, and then I fell behind in reading those. And so that was almost reminding me, like, damn, this really affected you.
Oh,
right?
wow, yeah.
And so each time I engage with my own story, even though I've done it a ton of times, it's still real to me.
Yeah.
Which I think is important as a human, because I never want to be numb.
Yeah.
We've all dealt with like nonchalant, jaded people or cynical people. I don't want to be
Or
that.
have been at some point.
That, yeah. And I don't want to be numb to my own experiences, but I also don't want to be a woe is me
Yeah.
person. So I think going through this it was almost like organizing what I already knew, and also it's like rewriting with this creativity. Like I'm putting these tracks maybe at the beginning of something difficult, and then you hear this track, and it's like, for example, the overture. That's that chapter about what happened to me as a child, and but it's like an intro to a song where Lin Manuel Miranda is like talking about the importance of storytelling.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I am able to tell these difficult things, but I'm putting it under the framework of music that provides me comfort. I'm referencing pop culture like TLC and the Spice Girls and just, you know, Destiny's Child and, you know, these things that give us nostalgia. And then I'm also talking about the books I was reading. So I'm throwing in these nuggets of things that provided me comfort.
Yeah.
And so it gives a more balance, like in rewriting, I'm telling what happened, but I'm giving elements of what provides me comfort. And it also helps the reader so that you don't get traumatized by what I'm saying. So I'll give you something funny, and then I'm gonna give you some literary whiplash, and you're gonna be like, "What just happened?"
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you, thank you. One of the things I think about is the fact that this book is from, you know, falling out of the sky, being born,
Yep.
up until literally like a year or two ago, 2 years
Yes.
ago at this point. And so, does this feel like chapter closed for you? Is that what the book feels like? And that you're kind of moving into the new chapter to kind of have put everything in a book?
no.
Okay.
And this is where I get to, I guess, get literary,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, let's go.
This is a memoir. It's not an autobiography.
Right, you're not done.
You get one autobiography. You can have tons of memoirs. So I thought, and when I went through this, I was like, I'll never write another. Like, who did I think I was starting out the gate with writing a memoir? This was a lot. And I am working on like a children's book and a novel, but I'm also working on another memoir. And it will be different. It'll be in verse. I'm going to write it in poetry, and you're more versed at poetry than I am. I just started writing poetry last year, but I'm like, I'm going to tell more
Yeah, do it.
in memoir, but I'm going to use poetry because I'm not defined by a genre. But it doesn't feel like chapter closed because, like I said, as I'm literally sitting at my desk, you know, finishing final tweaks to submit this to the publisher, I'm blindsided less than 24 hours before my spouse was planning to just move out
Yeah.
and didn't tell me. So reading this book, you wouldn't know that that was going to happen.
Right.
So in the acknowledgments, if you read to that, you'll see, oh, shit. So I get you with one more, right? Like, you're like, oh, well, he kind of got it, you know, lives happily ever after, but I don't like a memoir that is happily ever after because
Yeah.
we never stop growing and evolving,
Right.
right? So it ends with kind of like, oh, and what do you do with that?
Right.
But it's also a reminder that the chapter never closes unless we die. And I'm here. So
And then it becomes autobiography.
yeah. But when I write that second memoir in verse, we're gonna get into what happened.
Okay.
And all that went down there.
Okay, stay tuned for part 2.
Yes. And again, if you didn't want to be written about, you should have behaved better.
Right.
So we'll see what poetry does to soften so that I don't end up on a revenge tour.
I love that. I love that. So some of my favorite parts are really some of the like iconic things that happen in childhood, and I think it's so funny. We talk about the fact that a lot of Black and brown people just had the same childhood. Like we were just doing the same experiences. We all know the same things. And so the part where you're writing about the passing of Aaliyah, it's so interesting because I did not connect that to 9/11. Like those are two very distinct. They are distinct, but I didn't realize they happened in the same year, let alone the same month, a couple of months or months. Was it in the same time, month or so?
Yeah, I think It was within a few months of each
Yeah, I swooped my hair for like 2 months straight. Like I was like, this is an homage to Aaliyah every day. I barely had any hair, didn't fit in a ponytail, but what I had, I was swooping across my eye as much as possible. And so reading that scene, I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember being in class, and they're telling us that essentially 9/11 is happening in real time. A history class, my teacher just being for me, feeling like they're being dramatic, but not because I wasn't grasping exactly what was happening at that age. I think it was elementary school for you, I think. And
I
it
was in fourth grade.
Yeah, and it was middle school for me. And I remember just sitting in class thinking, like, do I even know anyone in New York? So those experiences that you're having that are so very familiar, your mother getting her car, like I remember the exact same sort of thing happening, my mom getting her first car. And so Oh, another thing that was really, really interesting to me that was both sweet and heartbreaking, and in my version of the book, I have it tagged, where you meet your grandmother on your father's side.
Yes.
And this was the only meeting.
Yes.
That I just read that, and I was like, I was so excited for the introduction of this person who was going to be so sweet and lovely for you, and then not getting to have that relationship further. I won't ask you about that because we don't need to.
You can.
Okay.
I ain't scared.
All right, let's talk about it. So, where is she still living?
No.
No. Okay.
And so you mentioned I have this one meeting.
Yeah.
And then the next I heard about her was, I guess at some point we all Google ourselves, right? And I Googled myself, and it was an obituary.
Oh, gosh.
And I was listed as a grandchild.
Oh.
So I was like, okay. And so it was like I had that fond memory.
Yeah.
And then it was final,
Yeah, Yeah.
So.
Okay. You notice I haven't looked at my list of questions not once because I'm just enjoying this conversation. Everything you say make me think of something else. I am curious if someone had, let me make this example really distinct. You meet Lauryn Hill, because I know how you feel about her. You have 2 minutes to convince her of this book. Which story, I'm not going to tell you to give her a synopsis of the book, which story would she have to read that's going to convince her to want to read the whole book?
I would want her to read the track Rest in Peace, Captain Save-A-Ho,
Okay.
which is the longest track of the book, the most painful one for me to write. But what I would tell her is when she sings the word reciprocity in X Factor, I feel it every time. And when she sang reciprocity, it transcended all of these different eras of my life I've been through. And it became the thesis of this book, which is unreciprocated relationships hurt because they're unsustainable.
Yeah.
And that is a complete story in which you see what starts out good becoming very unreciprocated, but that story is a good one to reference because it draws back to all the other times that I was in an unreciprocated situation and why it hurt me so much without me even knowing why.
Yeah.
But she loves the word reciprocity.
Yeah.
And she would feel that through that. And then when she read the rest of the book, she would be like, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love it.
So, Lauren, if you're listening, just drop an address. I'll send it to you.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. The question just went out of my head. I felt so proud of myself for not losing not one question this entire time, and then it finally happened. Okay, so I'm going to let you read us a little bit.
Okay.
Yes, because I think that would be great. Like, we've been talking about this story, talking about your book, talking about your life. Just let us read a little bit. I think it's really interesting. You'll find in the way that Johnzelle writes there, similar to an actual mixtape, these interludes that happen where what I find so interesting is because I always think of it like, that sort of intrusive thought that, they try to beat out of us when they're trying to make us be normal. And I'm like, those intrusive thoughts are the perfect sidebar to help us to walk through this book. So I'm going to hold the mic for you while or if you got it.
I'm gonna ask y'all a question first. Do you want lighthearted and funny, or do you want real?
That's
Show
a
of
hard-
hands, lighthearted,
Just too
and
bad.
show of hands, real. Okay, we're gonna do real, but maybe we'll have time for lighthearted later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, if you interlude like the way you do, then you get some of your lighthearted, funny. in
Okay,
there,
and let me
too.
explain the interludes because I don't know if these two have them in it.
Okay.
The interlude in the book is where I break the fourth wall. And so I come out of being and telling the story through the age I was at the time to just talking to you like a friend, right? So I remember one where it's like, the parents are arguing about child support, and then there's an interlude. That nigga most certainly didn't pay child support. Like, I just step out and just let you know what it was, just in case you were wondering, And then I come back into the story, and I'm a child again, So it gives my adult self the ability to almost tend to that inner child.
Yeah.
But also doing it in the framework of music. So y'all want real, so I'm gonna give it. It's not too bad. You're gonna have to get the book for the big ones.
Gotcha.
But let's see if I can hold it while
Okay.
doing it.
Oh, y'all see my phone? It was hidden back there the whole time.
Okay. So this one, we were talking about how there were just shared experiences growing up during these times. So this one, since we're in DC, might as well talk about the DC snipers. Is it
Okay.
too soon?
No, not too soon.
Okay, it was 2002, but it's still, every time I see a white van. Okay, so for about 6 months in 2002, two men whom news outlets referred to as the DC snipers unleashed a reign of domestic terrorism in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Though the shootings closest to me were hours away from my home in Roanoke, Virginia, I was plagued with anxiety as the rampage developed. The snipers were shooting people from the back of an old Chevy, but for the longest time, the news reported the shots came from a white van. There are hella white vans in the world. Every time I'd be at a stoplight, in a parking lot, or anywhere near a white van, I'd cringe and sweat, scared the sniper was going to make me his next victim. Even at home, I became hypervigilant. When the school bus stopped at the former crack house, side note, the former crack house is what I refer to that house as because it used to be a crack house. Back into reading this. When the school bus stopped at the former crack house, I'd cover my head with my backpack and run as fast as I could and lock the door right away. I kept the blinds and curtains closed and ducked down when I passed windows. When the then 17-year-old and 41-year-old men responsible were arrested, my vicarious trauma persisted. I had already developed an insistence on locked doors years prior after Edmund put that gun in Mac's face. The year 2001 showed me hateful people can fly planes into buildings, and now the DC snipers taught me I can't be safe anywhere. If my elementary years were supposed to be a boot camp for developing a crippling anxiety disorder, I was crushing it.
Wow. Y'all can clap. I got to snap because I only got one hand, but go for it. Wow. Yes, that's absolutely another one of those. I was thinking about last week when it snowed and, they told us we were going to have all this snow and they got 1 inch. And I'm like, oh, my kid is staying home for snow. I was outside zigzagging to the bus stop to avoid the DC sniper and you're staying home for snow. I remember that they told us, just zigzag, you'll be okay. I was like, we are not okay.
They
To this
can't
day,
hit a
we're
moving
traumatized.
target.
We are traumatized. I remember there were bushes by the bus stop, and I was like, they could be in the bushes right now, and I'm just at the bus stop doing like this, just trying to save my life. It's crazy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, that was great. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, awesome. So what I wanted to, I remember the question I want to ask, and I want to go back to it because it's such a pivotal theme in the book in regard to the fact that we have a white mother who is racist to the man she has had a child with.
Yes.
That is wild to me. It shouldn't, oh goodness. And we're talking about the fact that, I'm just correlating the fact that this is also your experience
Yes.
being a black man and having a child with a white woman who is racist towards you. I'm sure you've had this epiphany
A
before.
different
I'm having
kind
it,
of.
a different kind.
Well, her family was
Her family.
more racist.
Okay.
But there were moments that it triggered. Yeah.
Right.
But go on and ask your question.
Yeah, no, we're developing it in real time because, ultimately, even today, there is still the ongoing conversation that we are not quite there yet when we can just assume that people in mixed race relationships, for lack of better words, I'm not sure the best term to use, are allies together. Everyone's on the same page. We're all good. That's just not the truth. And so you are in a house as a black child who is experiencing hearing your father, who you don't have a good relationship with, or really any relationship with at all, be spoken about in such a derogatory way. Can you speak to how it was for you having to become a father, but also in a similar relationship style, but what you grew up with?
Yeah. So it sounds wild to say, but my first racists were in my home. So my mother, white person from Michigan, father is an immigrant from Sierra Leone, West Africa. And so the kind of preconditioning that happened was, I talk about the complex relationships between them and how all that unfolded before I had awareness, right? But I was taught that, he's African and he's bad and all this. So I grew up thinking the black part of me, there's something wrong with it, but because kids only know what you teach them, right? So something like sitting in like a very Afrocentric like bookstore like we're in right now, that would have felt, with that conditioning, would have felt like I don't belong here, right? And so like you asked the question, well, how did that, as you grew up and started your own family and things like that, I had to do, this book is broken up into homeroom. I base it off of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill because I love that lady. But there's 4 sections. There's homeroom, you meet the people. Miseducation, self-explanatory. Unlearning, and then graduation. So in unlearning, I have to start shedding some of this conditioning, some of this, because it's foreign, there's something wrong with it. And I learned how to connect with the roots that weren't shown to me from my father and that were miseducated from the whiteness. And, in my own choosing to marry and have a child with a white woman, in the beginning, it wasn't bad. Like, other than her racist family, treating me like an outsider. But I knew how to deal with that from white people because I started out that way, right? But in, having a child, and being in that relationship, there was a period of time where it was like allyship, but there were also times where my blackness was a trope, and you'd hear something like, or she'd be telling me a story about like when she was at work or something, and she's like, and then I was like, well, my husband's black, and I'm like, how is that relevant to the thing? So, and what it did was it triggered the selective, you can choose one part of my identity and dismiss another kind of thing. And it wasn't the same toxic experience that I saw in my formative years. It was its own thing, but I can't speak to every mixed race relationship will be good or bad or whatever.
Yeah.
I just know, as I've already told y'all, post this book being written, I got separated. I'm never dating a white person again. I don't want to explain,
Yeah.
especially to. I've just gotten to the point where I can't. I'm tired, and it doesn't matter if it's in dating, if it's in business, if it's in anything. Privilege, entitlement, but y'all want the marginalized to do the work to make you understand when you don't have to live under the certain conditions, and you want us to do the work all for you to pass on actually doing a damn thing about it. And so I'm not interested.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Absolutely.
Won't be doing that again, but I do love that. I do love my daughter, so I can't say I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have my child. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
did I answer the question?
You did answer
Okay.
the question. Yeah, thank you. And I think
Got me
that's
talking about white people, and I'm just like, oh, here we go.
and I think that's one of the parts that was, just really difficult is reading the interactions between your father and your mother even before you were here.
Yes.
It just really sort of took me off my feet because I think we have associated unfortunately, especially in America, the idea of, black children getting abandoned by their fathers because of American fathers and the way America has treated black men and things. And so you having that story from a different vantage point, him not being black American, really sort of did two things for me. One, it was just really shocking to know that was, was happening in someone that I have a relationship with, your family. And two, as odd as this may sound, make me go, okay, well, that's proof that it's not just black men doing that. And that doesn't necessarily serve anything for me to kind of have that. But I think ultimately, it on the broad spectrum, the thing about a memoir is that the people's stories and identities and the experiences they have and all of the nuances that are their stories, as much as we talk about, 90s babies, 80s babies being raised and everything being the same, there are all these nuances that help us realize that other people have stories and we're able to learn and grow from them. I often talk about the fact that, in one of my, I ain't fooling with no white people spells in my life, which happens very often, there's a lot of them, and they last for a long time. I encountered a white woman's story that rocked my world to the point that I was like, oh my God, people be going through stuff. People be going through
Crazy.
stuff. And it made me want to read. That's when I started to read other people's story. I don't think I've picked up a memoir from a celebrity in a really long time because I'm like, I can get a lot of that from anywhere. But these people who are writing their stories and they want to put it out to the world and nobody quite knows them yet, these are the stories that I find extremely fascinating and interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to refer to my list of questions because I thought of them, and I think some of these I want to get answers to.
Yeah.
So how do you talked about it a little bit in regards to poetry, and that's sort of how I met you in the poetry space, but how do you utilize writing in other spaces, and what other ways do you write?
So, I'm not classically trained in creative writing, so I don't have I think I consider that like a type of freedom because some people might feel compelled to stay in a genre. Now, while I'm working on another memoir, that's going to come in, that's going to be like book number 4 probably, because I have a children's book that I'm working on. And then I'm playing with like a novella novel, but it's going to be kind of like a bisexual, possibly smut, depending on how nasty I want to be.
Okay.
And it's very different from memoir, but also it's right up my alley because I use my own stories to kind of get creative.
Yeah.
And so with novel, I think I can say some things and from getting out here and dating again, black men exclusively, because like I said, no more white people, please. I got some stories, and so now I can, it's true. Yeah. So I learned some things. And I'm gonna put those funny anecdotes of some things that I've been through in the novel. So I've done blogs. I've got into writing poetry last year, and so I want to hone that. And the best way to challenge yourself to get better at something is to do something big with it. So
Yeah.
write a memoir in verse. When you don't write poetry like that, uh, it'll probably beat my ass.
Yeah, but the challenge will be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least it'll be well toned.
Yes.
So.
No, because I'm the same way. You know, been writing for a long time. Don't consider myself classically trained. Everyone knows me as a poet, and so trying to kind of branch out a little bit is has been challenging. But currently taking a writing class, my teacher is like, so here's the genre and here's the style of writing. We just had to write a sonnet about family, and so he asks me, how does it feel to write? It was awful, because sonnets have to rhyme. I've never written a poem and like, let me find a word that rhymes with orange. And then I'm like, oh, there aren't any. So now I have to change the lines up.
Yeah.
So, but the challenge itself is interesting. So I look forward to that for you. So tell me, what do you want people to get out of the book? They have read the book. If you could pick, and I know, if, you know, the book it takes on a life of its own, but if you can pick what they walk away with after the book, what would that be?
I got you. So, since Lauryn Hill is going to get my elevator pitch, we've already talked about how unreciprocated relationships hurt because they're unsustainable. But in this book, I demonstrate through my different anecdotes and stuff is that humans are wired for connection with other humans. And so that's how the unreciprocated part hurts and how it's unsustainable, because if you are wired to need to connect with others, what happens when you're rejected, abandoned, neglected, abused, etc.? So I will say that you'll walk away from this book knowing that if we are wired to need connection, connection means being loved, liked, and understood.
Yeah.
And it goes three ways. We need to love, like, and understand ourselves internally. Since we are wired this way, we have the ability to give love, like, and understanding to others.
Okay.
And others are wired or capable of giving us love, like, and understanding. There's three different directions there. If something goes wrong in one of those directions, you're going to suffer.
Yeah.
That's where that unsustainability, that's where that lack of reciprocity is. And this book is my, not telling you how to fix it. I'm a therapist, but I'm not trying to write a therapist, self-help book. I don't like them kind of books, no shade. They don't do nothing for me because it's one size fits all. But a person can read messiness or uncertainty or a story of someone that may not be exactly like them, but with the way that I've told my story, even with some of the things being heavy and some of the things being humorous, and then my creativity, people are going to see themselves in this story, and they're also going to be able to feel loved, liked, and understood from me as the author.
Yeah, beautiful.
As I show myself my other versions of myself love, like, and understanding, and then my stories kind of come with these like conclusions of, wow, he wanted to be loved, he was misunderstood there, they didn't like him.
Yeah.
And so it teaches the importance of pursuing those things, and then get out if they're not reciprocating it.
That
Leave
part.
him, leave her.
Leave him.
Yeah.
Leave her.
Stop
Say that to the
texting him
camera,
back.
so they,
Yeah.
because I got people I want to say
Break
that
up
to.
with him. And it's also a reminder to me, like, I got out here and started dating in the streets. And I had to remind myself, don't be chasing somebody who's not going to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And I didn't handle, we all have our dumb bitch moments, but I think I figured it out, and I stopped being, like, when I recognized lack of reciprocity, I don't do much with the astrology, but they say a Cancer will just disappear, and once we change our mind, you ain't gonna find us. I love a read receipt
Yeah.
for the plot. and then I move on. And then they're mad, and they stay on my story checking everything I'm doing, but I've already forgotten your name. So
Yeah.
I'm getting better at not putting up with lack of reciprocity, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I have about one more question, and then I'm going to let you close by reading another section of the book.
Okay.
But I have had the pleasure of watching this journey from when I first met you, and you didn't even mention at the time that you were writing a memoir. I think it was a couple of meetings in. And by this meeting, I had already decided that I'm going to make this person my best friend. That's how I do. I just kind of stalk people quietly.
What kind of best friend was I going to be?
Oh, my gay best friend is what I said.
Yeah.
And then when I introduced his wife, I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. And then recently my husband was like, see, you were right. He is now your new gay best friend. I was like, I love that for us. But, you know, but watching watching you, the book go to, production and the editing process and, kind of updating me on the process of sending it out and getting responses and all of that. And I'm the type of person, I been working on the book since I was 12, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. So I don't, it takes me a long time.
She's
so
22.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'm 22. Thank you. So watching you go through this whole process has been beautiful. But now that the book is out and you are getting such good attention from it, I'm so excited for you, so proud of you. I've personally been in spaces where the book has come up, the topic of the book has come up, and I'm not even with him, not even talking about the book. You got a chance to do an interview with Clay Kane, whose book is in this store also, and so many other exciting interviews and podcasts and things that you are doing. I want to know, we know what's coming next with you. You've talked about, your other book plans and things, but for you, what do you want to happen next with this book? Like, I know we're promoting it right now, but at the pinnacle of it all, what do you want from this book? We're going to put it in the atmosphere right now. I be asking high-pressure questions sometimes, y'all.
Well, I want people to read it.
That part, that's important, yeah.
And buy it before you read it, please.
Oh, yeah.
But I want, the mission of this was for somebody to feel loved, liked, and understood. So that has already been accomplished because people have told me, thank you. Or I felt like the Johnzelle that was in, elementary school or whatever, and that resonated with them. So my memoir has the effect on other people that other people's memoirs have had on me. So it's already doing that.
Yeah, beautiful.
I will say that what do I want this book to do is at the very beginning, which is when I give the dedication to my daughter. And so I'm going to read that.
Yeah.
Maya Jane, you can't read yet, but one day I hope you'll pick this up and understand where I come from. May these words serve as a guide for exploring who you are unapologetically. Love, Dada. So that will be the ultimate, because I had to struggle, be confused, get on a plane and go to West Africa not knowing what the hell I was doing. I put her on a plane and took her to West Africa.
Yeah.
So she won't have to go through what I had to go through. And by being brave enough to do that exploration, I'm a better person to guide her through whatever her obstacles and things like that will be. So it was for me first and foremost. It was for my child. It is for my readers to feel loved, liked, and understood. So beyond how many books it sells or how many interviews I get or whatever, the book is serving its purpose of people being seen.
Yeah.
And so as long as it keeps doing that, I don't see a way that it couldn't. But I'm satisfied with that.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. I will put New York Times bestseller Interview with Issa Rae or Trevor Noah into the
Issa
universe
Rae.
for you. Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for this book. I will just say, on a personal note, that I think it's a testament to the need for this book to be now, that it is perfect timing for it to be in the world. your healing and your journey. Because I read this and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my friend Johnzelle that I'm reading. And I would have never known those things about you from this version of you that is healed, that's growing, that's liking, loving, and understanding yourself, had I not read it in the book. So I'm excited for people to read the book, to see themselves in the book. We've talked about the fact that, reading those stories, one of the first thing I did is hug my son close, and I'm like, we're gonna protect. And that's one of the things I think if I can, just speak out of turn and say that I would want people to get from the book as well, is to hold on to your children, protect them, fight for them fiercely, keep them safe.
Yes.
Our children just went on a date the other day. They're 5 years old.
Yes.
So we took
I
them.
need to get some melanin back into the line because I'm mixed. My ex is Caucasian. My child came out fair. Okay, my face, but ne'er a drop of melanin. Okay, so it is my mission for my child to marry her child, and then if they choose to reproduce, then we will have more color.
Yeah, because my son came out darker than both me and my husband. He got his color from.
He has extra melanin.
Yeah,
and
he
we
got
need
that
to-
extra.
yeah.
He got it from the grandparents, I'm sure. It's funny, we talk about, just on a side note, the fact that before I had him, my husband's grandfather and my father both came to a dream, and both of their names are Paul, kept showing up in our dreams. And I was like, y'all are really trying to make us name this baby Paul and claim him for yourselves. And they was like, since you won't give him the name, he showed up just as chocolate as he want to be. And I was like, okay, he got y'all color. I got it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, did you still want to read an excerpt from the book? Or?
Okay, we can
will
do the
leave it up to
lighthearted
you.
one.
Okay, we'll do the lighthearted one and then we'll close.
Forget which one I picked. Oh, that was the heavy one. Okay, we ain't doing that again. Where'd I put it? Okay, so this is one where you get to see just a moment of music, but it's also just an experience we all go through. So I received my license the second I was old enough. One step closer to freedom. My temporary license in hand, I asked Cindy, okay, so side note, there's a very definitive moment in the book where I stop referring to my mother as my mom and I start calling her Cindy. And when you see what she did to my teddy bear, you will understand why.
Yeah, she did right there.
Yeah, rest in peace, Herbie. All right, so my temporary license in hand, I asked Cindy, can I take your car for a drive to celebrate? I was surprised when she handed me the keys and warned, don't wreck my shit. I was ecstatic and yelled, thank you. I raced out to the Chevy Cavalier before she could change her mind. Putting the convertible top down, I suddenly felt exposed and prayed none of my classmates would see me because Cindy had adorned her ride with Betty Boop everything. Steering wheel cover, floor mats, license plate frames, bumper stickers, and seat covers. I turned the key and the stereo blasted Drop It Low by Esther Dean. Not the song I would have imagined for my first solo drive, but it was a vibe nonetheless. So there I was, cruising around Roanoke in a drop top, the lyrics, move that ass around, reverberating as I headed to Mill Mountain Coffee downtown. I treated myself to an espresso milkshake, reveling in this moment of freedom, pretending as long as I could that life would get better someday.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. Please definitely check out the book. They have it available here. Mixtape, a memoir by Johnzelle Anderson. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for Sankofa for having us. This is so exciting. Did anyone have any questions before I let you go? I'm wrapping it up, but just in case y'all have any questions, I wanted to put it out there. 3, okay, we got one in the back.
So, actually, funny enough, I was one of the interns for the Black Writers Conference. You remember? Oh my gosh, hey! Do you have any more events that you'll be, sharing your book at?
Well, since you asked, next Friday, I will be in Baltimore at Vinyl and Pages. We're doing a collaboration. It's like an author talk, but there's also a card game called Soundtrack. And it's based around music and like lyrics and things like that. And it's kind of like a crossover. So we're going to do an author talk about Mixtape, a Memoir, but we're also going to play a game with Soundtrack, the card game, at the event. So next Friday at Vinyl and Pages in Baltimore. And there's myriad other things that are like rolling in, and I'm trying to post about it on Instagram. So follow me, Johnzelle _ that's JOHN, like zebra, ELLE _ You got to do that when you're black, because they be sending you mail that don't even make any sense. Like the Starbucks cup will just be a atrocity of what you told them your name was. So Johnzelle _ I've been posting everything that I have coming up there. So hopefully I keep, getting to connect with black owned bookstores, because that's where I want, like, this is where I feel comfortable, in a black owned bookstore, an indie bookstore. And so being in those spaces with my story, I feel like my story is safe there. So
So
thank you for asking.
Yeah, definitely follow him to connect with all the other stuff, because I know he has a lot more coming up that he hasn't mentioned. So you'll get a chance to see him anymore. Any other questions? All right. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us. This is amazing. I'm excited.
And thank you, friend, for being my moderator.
Thank you.
Driving up here and all of that. So
yeah, because it's my first time doing this, y'all. So this is exciting for me, too.
Yeah.
It literally got on the bucket list for like the top of this year. So I'm so excited. We're only 3 months in, and I'm getting to do this with you. So, yay, many more things together.
Yes.
All right. Y'all have a great night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.